Hey, good morning, everyone, and or good afternoon, wherever you are. And this happy Valentine's Day. You see, I'm here in my pink shirt at the job site in outside of Phoenix in Tempe, Arizona. This is we are going to welcome to our podcast on marine infrastructure. Today, it's really maybe not so much marine, but we do have a water structure. This is a canal that, as you can see here on behind me, this canal is coming over, passes through this flume over a roadway, and the part of the project that we're going to be looking at today is how to repair some of the leaks in this canal, and as a result of the leak, the columns below that support the canal where some of them were damaged by corrosion. So we're going to be going down with our crew from FRP Construction that are fixing this structure and take a look at it and see how a wet layup is applied. The wet layup is the original technique that we introduced some 35 years ago, where you saturate the fabric and directly wrap it on columns or beams. So let's just walk down, and as we go here, we'll show you what some of these leaks, how they were fixed. So let's go out here together. And as you see, where these various sections of the flume were supported on these columns, at that joint they had some leaks. So come out here, you see, like you can see right out here, this is like some of the leaks that they had. So what our guys do is basically put ports in here and inject the urethane grout. These are the grouts that when they're exposed to water, they expand and fill all of the cracks and basically seal them. Let's go around the corner. You see some of the ports in here. Here you can see the ports that get embedded inside of the crack, and then you inject the urethane grout, and the grout goes through here, seals it. But once this grout cures, it basically becomes like a rubbery elastic material that fills the joint and prevents any further leakage. You have to trace and chase these leaks all the way to the top, so they're going to be doing more of that, fixing all of these to the top. But our main focus today is really going to be on how we are repairing some of these columns on this job site. So let's just move down, thanks to Jimmy, who is acting as our cameraman today. Let's go down and look at how this. Here you see also some of the other. These are all that have been. These are some of the other joints that have been filled with that urethane grout, and you see the extra parts of the. This is the excess part of the urethane grout that comes out of it, very rubbery type material. So here we go to the column. Okay, Jimmy. Yeah. So there are a few columns that we are going to be repairing on this job today. Our focus is only on this, one of them. So what is going to happen is we will be repairing, putting these unidirectional carbon fabrics, or U27C carbon, which is a 2-foot wide band. We'll be going around and repairing this column 2 foot, 2 foot, 2 foot. These bands go all the way around. The column is going to require 2 continuous wraps. You could either do that with one long piece of fabric that goes all the way twice and with an overlap, or, as we are going to show you today, they're going to be doing that 2 layers in 2 different sections. So the first layer starts about here, goes all the way around and comes back with an 8-inch overlap. That would be the first layer. And then the next layer, when they apply that, you want to stagger the joint so you don't get that overlap at the same point. So maybe the second layer, you can start from about here and go one time and 8 inches for that joint. So the fabric also, maybe, Jimmy, if you want to bring it here, this is the unidirectional carbon fabric. And when we say unidirectional, for those of you who haven't, you see it's very flexible. And by unidirectional, we mean that all of the fibers in this fabric are aligned with the axis of the fabric. We don't have anything in the transverse direction. So the entire strength of this fabric is only along the length of the fabric. And when we wrap that around the column, then that becomes basically like the confinement around the column. So it adds a lot of strength to the concrete column because of confinement, and of course protects it from corrosion as well. So this is the fabric. And now these guys are going to be measuring and mixing the epoxy, which could be a little bit noisy with the power generator running. So let us just like look at that. There are 2 different epoxies that this type of repair requires. One is a lower viscosity resin, which is almost like warm honey, and that is for saturating the fabric. So that's a couple of the guys are going to be doing that. And then we have another, if you were going to put that saturated fabric directly on the surface of the concrete column like here, it is probably going to slide down because of the fact that saturant is almost like a lubricant. So it wouldn't stay in place. So to make sure that the fabric stays in place on a column, or if you're doing an overhead application on a beam, we would put a very thin layer of another epoxy that we call a tack coat. And that has like a consistency like toothpaste. So we put a very thin film of that tack coat on the column in this case, and then we put the wet saturated fabric on it, and that would make sure that the fabric doesn't slide down. Okay, so now we go here and we're going to look at the crew measuring and starting to mix the 2 different epoxies. So come out here. Again, in honor of Valentine's Day, we have Tiffany in her pink shirt, like mine. So, okay, so here are the 2 different things. We have, this one is our tack coat. The epoxy comes, all of our epoxies come in 2 components, part A and part B. So this is the tack coat. They are going to measure and when you look at the product data sheet, we tell you this can be measured by weight or by volume. It's really preferred that you go by weight because then you know exactly how much you're going to be mixing. So they are going to measure the parts of that. You guys have a scale here? Okay, yes, you see the scale is here. They've got their empty bucket in there, and they're going to be measuring enough of the part A and part B of the tack coat. The same thing on the left is the saturating resin, which I told you it is, that 300 SR saturating resin. That's the more like honey consistency. So let them measure the weights that they want. Go ahead, guys, if you want to start measuring, and then when they start mixing, we'll get out of their way so we won't the noise won't bother us. Yeah. Yeah, obviously you have to keep track of, you put the weight of the empty bucket in there, and then, then you measure how much of the fluids or the resin part A and part B you're adding. All right, maybe we can leave these guys alone and let them do their own measuring and mixing. We'll check with them in a minute. We're gonna walk to one of these columns. This one actually, maybe Jimmy, you can show them. This one is not quite as badly damaged. This column just has some cracks in it. So you see some of the, the cracks, for example, along here. So in this case, we are only going to wrap this column, on the surface of the existing concrete. There wasn't really much patching needed. But the next column that we are going to show you was a lot more severely corroded. So let's go out to here. All right. So this is one of those. I'm going to switch roles with Jimmy here. Jimmy is one of our experienced. He's been with us for a long time. He's a foreman, has been with us, Jimmy Balderramo. And tell us, Jimmy, how you guys go about repairing this thing here.
When it's really corroded, and you can see that it's about to break off, we go through with a hammer and we sound check everything. This one was real bad, so during that sound check, lots of it just fell off on its own. But we have marks out where we have solid sound concrete. We'll saw cut, and then we'll chip it. So it'll be a clean cut. It won't look like how it looks like here. It'll be a clean cut, and then that'll be the area we patch. The rebar, we'll wire wheel or sandblast, whatever you guys want to do. We'll clean it. We'll get behind it, make sure that we put a rust inhibitor, and then a bonding agent for the concrete, and then we go back to patching, hand patching.
Okay, great. Yeah. So this is basically work in progress right now.
Yes. This guy barely got started on.
Yeah. So thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. I appreciate it. So maybe I get on this side. And really, again, for something like this, the reason why I thought, this would be good also to point out to you that anytime, with this old wet layup system, when you have to repair a column, this type of repair that Jimmy just explained to you, it's time consuming. So you would have to, clean the rebar, then put the anti-corrosion material and patch it. Then you have to wait for the patching material to dry or cure before you can wrap the fabric around it. The fabric, because it is so flexible, you cannot wrap it directly on a jagged surface like that. So you have to nicely finish this surface, make it, pretty plain, like a good finished concrete column before you can apply the fabric to it. But with the way we would now, with the development of our PileMedic system, for example, if we were going to do this job, and if there was a site that maybe the client didn't mind enlarging the column a little bit, then we would directly, we would put the laminate around the column with a little annular space, and we won't spend any time on prepping the surface like this or patching it and waiting. So it's a lot faster. You just put the laminate around it at a space and fill the annular space between PileMedic and the column, with concrete or grout. But here, because this would be, like the rest of the columns on this side, this job site are pretty good. They don't really have a lot of damage. So we decided to not use the PileMedic even on this one. We would do it like the old-fashioned way of patching it. But if you watch some of our marine, podcasts, a lot of these marine projects, when we go in there are hundreds of piles, and especially when it is underwater. Again, like a point to keep in mind is that this fabric repair type that I describe here, it can be done above water, but you cannot apply that underwater. Or you cannot apply it when you have like a pile that has a lot of section loss, and you just cannot wrap that around that. Say like you have a timber pile that is hourglass damaged like that, you can't really apply that fabric around it. So I want to give a heads up. You guys are going to start mixing it? Go ahead, please. Yeah. So they've already measured the parts of the epoxy, and they're going to start mixing, and maybe we'll have a little bit of a noise coming our way. But yeah, but we can, as soon as they start mixing, we can go out there, Jimmy, and show. Oh yeah.
Choke it.
That was not a part of the plan for the generator not to turn on, but it'll come on.
It'll get it.
Yeah, they'll get it going.
The choke.
Yeah, while we are waiting here, you can see that also, like, this is again another section that it has been already injected with grout. And some of the leaks that you see that was coming down, that was actually like the source of, the reason for a lot of this corrosion was this water from the canal leaking on the column and causing corrosion. So we can go up here and see the mixing of it. Then maybe I'll take this and show them. So this one is our tack coat getting mixed. It is two parts. One of them is white and the other one is black. So you want to mix it thoroughly to get a uniform gray color, as he's doing it like right in here. And that looks pretty good. Okay. That's good. So these guys, they're going to take this tack coat and put it on the surface of the column. And then the other guys, now we have the mixing of the saturating resin, which is in here. And this one, as he starts mixing it, this is, has a lower viscosity. You'll see it in a minute. So we're walking now to the job site, or to the column. There we go. They have already put their mark here where the column is going to go, that first 2 feet. You put this, you notice that this tack coat has a consistency, as I said before, like a toothpaste, so it stays on. You want to put like a thickness of about maybe 30 to 40 mil, or almost like a little bit less than 1 millimeter in thickness. And that's what he's putting that over that whole surface before we put the fabric on it. So they do that. And on the other side, they're mixing the saturating resin. Now, the saturation of the fabric can be done two ways. One, in some of the bigger jobs where we have a lot of material, we use a saturating machine that you run the fabric between two rolls that push the resin in it. Or on this job where we have, you want to put the fabric on first or no? Oh, I see. You put a little bit. Good, on the bottom. All right. You know what you're doing better than I do. So here they take the fabric. She's spreading it. On the plastic sheet. Because this is a small job and we have short pieces of fabric to be installed each time, we are using a hand, wetting the fabric by hand. So she's got that in there. Now they start taking the fabric. There we go. I see what you're doing. Tiffany is, while we were fixing the camera, she's been putting the resin over the fabric. You want to put in enough of that resin to make sure that it goes through all of the fibers and gets it nicely wetted out. You can almost tell from the, shiny color of the carbon after it has been saturated. And you want to, again, as she's doing it, you want to go over the edges, make sure that, you don't have any dry pieces along the edges, in the middle, anywhere, on both front and back. You have to really get the whole thing about these FRP systems is that, you need to have the fabric or the fibers saturated. Otherwise, you don't get the full strength of the product. So the part that has been saturated, you see she's just like rolling it up and taking it back up there and starting with the rest of it and just saturating that. And at the same time, the guys on this side, they have been already applying the tack coat to the surface of the column here, getting it ready for the fabric to go on. So this, by the way, while we are waiting, I should tell you that the namesake of our company, QuakeWrap, was from this particular application. When back in 1989, there was an earthquake, Loma Prieta earthquake in California, where a lot of the columns of the bridges collapsed because they didn't have enough ties around them. So at that time, we came up with this idea of taking this fabric and wrapping it around the columns in bridges or buildings in the hoop direction to provide additional confinement and stop them from collapsing, during earthquakes. So that particular application, QuakeWrap, the name came by taking the fabric and wrapping it around the column and make it earthquake resistant. So that's how we got our company's name. Even after we have developed all these other products like PileMedic and Spire and all of that, we still occasionally, from time to time, we do use the fabric when the jobs call for it. These fabrics are also, for example, are really well suited if you have a structure that doesn't have a uniform shape. Like, for example, if you're repairing an ashto girder that has a shape that that just varies, you put that fabric and it conforms to that shape. That reminds me also to tell you that if you're repairing a column or a beam, the edges, we have in our spec that you have to chamfer the edges so you don't have a sharp edge that will cause damage to the fabric. Now, in this case, as you see here, this column was originally constructed, with a chamfer built into it. And so in this case, we don't really, we just clean the surface and make sure that the surface is clean, no dust on it. So we didn't have to do anything special for the corner. But here the guys are, are you guys ready to do it? They're going to bring the fabric and start applying it in here. Yeah, perfect, yeah. Yeah, really show them. So here is the, he's got the fabric installed. You see, you want to make sure that as you put the fabric with your gloved hand, like Jesse is doing here, you run your hand over it to get rid of all of the air bubbles. And because this is a unidirectional fabric, you want to rub your hand in the direction of the fiber. Don't pull it apart. But this is perfect. You see the way he's going, then you just go around, get all of the air bubbles out. And as you see, this is staying nicely in place. So they go all the way around. If we didn't have that tack coat, the gray tack coat that you see, if that wasn't there, then this saturated fabric would slide down and it would be tricky to hold it in place. So that's really the main function of the tack coat, is just to keep the material from sliding down. But here you see, this has been just very nicely done. They're going to go complete one full turn, as I said before. in our design, the overlap length is 8 inches. So they have cut the fabric about 14.5 feet or so. That gives them enough to go one complete. And as we come here, Jimmy showed them that we are here with them. And he's putting a little bit of more tack coat here for that overlap to make sure the overlap stays in place too. So here we go. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Perfect, yes. So they've got very good. You know, now you have.
If they do find bubbles, they will go and trowel in the same direction as Mo was explaining.
Yes, if there are any bubbles, you know, later on we can, you know, they will, as long as, you know, like you have to maybe later in the day before it all sets, you know, go back and check it. If there is any need, you can just make sure you push those air bubbles out. But right now this looks really in a good shape. I don't think in this one we have to do any further repair. So here you go, folks. This is a wet layup application of our original QuakeWrap's original namesake, carbon fabric wrapped around the column to repair it. So this is the first layer. In this job, you know, we put at every elevation, we require 2 layers, like I said before. So they're going to be doing the next one. But we are not going to maybe, you know, we don't have enough time for you to show that. But this is kind of like coming to the end of our show. I don't know if there are, I may have to come around to look at, to see if there are any questions on there, or if, you know, if there are, I don't know, Jimmy, do you see any questions? If not, we can maybe end it here. I think, you know, I don't know if maybe there are not any questions today. So just to be on time, you know, we are at our almost like at our 30-minute allotted time. So we're going to end it here. If you have any questions, you know, please put it, you know, email it to us later, and I'll be happy to answer it to the group. So thanks again. Happy Valentine's Day, and